commissioners, of course. I want to acknowledge the leadership of BPOA is in the back there. They always do stand in the back of the room. It's so amazing. They're all standing exactly the same. Now I'm just going to turn around and look at you. But I appreciate you being here. I also appreciate the press being here as well. Today, I want to just acknowledge we're wrapping up week 2 with Chief Shawn Burke being here at the City of Burlington and being back here, most importantly, here at the city. I'm grateful for his immediate partnership out of the gate as the Chief of the Burlington Police Department now, and his positive impact so far in this role. He is really focusing on the people here within the BPD, which shows his care and attention to our top priority, which is the well-being of the people, the city employees who work here at the Burlington Police Department. He is also focusing on our community by already being out in the community and encouraging our officers to be more visible and available to residents. I always find it really remarkable when a leader jumps right in, right alongside the rank and file, and I've seen that already from Chief Burke. And he's already jumped into supporting the city's very important community safety policy work by testifying in the Vermont legislature in support of our gun charter item, which was had a hearing yesterday in front of the Vermont Senate Judiciary Committee. And I really appreciate that immediacy of jumping in and understanding that we need to be in multiple places at once, including making sure we're advocating for this important piece of hopeful successful legislation in the Vermont legislature. We have met and will continue to meet frequently over the next few months to advance his first priorities here as chief that we have developed together as a team. The first piece is to do an honest assessment of our recruitment and retention strategies. This includes how we are using our resources on recruitment, how we are exploring new strategies of how we can improve our recruitment and retention strategies, and also how to develop stronger partnerships with our community partners out and about. I also want to look at other cities with him to make sure that we are learning from their success within their recruitment efforts, including the city of Boston, who, when I was at a U.S. Conference of Mayors convening in Providence in February, immediately offered guidance and support on what they've done, because they also had a dip in their officer recruitment numbers over the last few years, but they've all started new strategies that have started to increase the number of applicants and the number of officers they now have on staff. A second priority will be assessing and making recommendations related to our priority response plan, and how that is the plan for which we use for triaging our calls from the public, and how we also utilize our full rank and file. That's not just the police officers, but it's our community safety officers, it's our community support liaisons as well. A third piece will be rebuilding the relationships, which, again, as myself, who I was a community and labor organizer, relationships are critical for the success, not of any organization, but most importantly for the city here. And so rebuilding relationships both internally and externally will be another priority for the chief. The internal work includes looking at our culture here at BPD, making sure there are leadership opportunities that are meaningful, and also listening to the concerns and the ideas, frankly, by the rank and file employees here at BPD. External relationships means developing trust with our community partners. It means making sure that we have the trust of our public, our critical community safety partners as well, including the state's attorney's office, regional law enforcement, and other department heads here at the city. And finally, the fourth priority in these next few months will be finishing critical policy updates for the BPD, including our press release policy and our FIP policy, which is the Fair and Partial Policing Policy. And this is to make sure that we're operating with great clarity, professionalism, and also in line with the values of our community. Chief Burke is already working across departments here in the city, including meeting with my senior advisor on community safety, Ingrid Jonas, our fire chief, Michael LaChance, and others to develop a more strategic approach to our public health work in the city. He has also met with our Community Justice Center to understand how we can better service victims and have more alternatives and accountability systems for those who cause harm in our community. I am hopeful and expect to be able to announce even more concrete steps on our community safety response strategy in the coming weeks. I will share more about this at my State of the City address on Monday night, and even more details at our May 8th Community Safety Forum. And now I'm going to turn it over to Chief Burke to share some of his thoughts about what the next few months entail, and then we'll open it up from questions from the media.
Thank you, Mayor. The mayor eloquently described where the last 9 days went, because I was curious what's gone on since I've been here, and was a little overwhelmed, thinking like I have to establish clear mission today for the rank and file of the organization, and that's not the purpose today. The purpose today really is table setting, and the mayor hit probably the most important part, and that's building internal relationships across what we have several groups of employees that are providing public safety services. By way of example, in kind of in tune with the priority response plan, in the last 7 days, the BPD has attended to 575 incidents. 30% of those have been handled by someone other than a sworn police officer. So we know in our work that we don't have the sworn police officers that we necessarily need to do this work, but we do have a strong rank and file of professionals that are here to assist. And how can we better leverage those resources? And that'll be an area of focus, because when you think about how to invest in employees, it's to give them a better work experience. And our police officers simply haven't had that. We're doing amazing work on the criminal side of the house, but that work takes time and it takes officers off the street. I know as we begin to approach summer that there's going to be a strong appetite to have a uniform presence in our public spaces, be it the marketplace or waterfront park. We are actively recruiting for our beach and parks patrol, which will augment those services of our police officers, but hopefully we can find some efficiencies here in the near term where we can get police officers out in the street. I went out Monday afternoon when it was a little bit warmer. I left the comfort of my office to get a feel for things downtown. And frankly, I was shocked at some of the public intoxication and drug use issues that I saw. And I think some of the people that I encountered were a little shocked when I told them, you simply can't do that. And they're like, well, are you going to write me a ticket? Because they're not worth anything. I said, I'm not going to write you a ticket, but you are going to dump that beer out. So it's through those, encounters where we can start to get a shared use of these public spaces that's fair for everyone. I realize that we are faced with being home to all the social services essentially in Chittenden County. So whereby we have a lot of people with unmet social service needs here living unhoused, but we have to figure out a way to better broker that. And then I guess I'll just say lastly, in terms of the policy work, the state of Vermont has not been lazy in terms of the number of state model policies that have been pushed out. So we do need to bring those congruent with community values, but knowing and recognizing that there's legal rigor to these state model policies. And as all of you know here from the press corps, that I love to engage with the media. So I will be working with the administration and then the police commission on a functional media release policy so we can get back to the work that I did here as the PIO when I served as the deputy chief and the work that I did as the South Burlington chief. So, with that, I'll say there's a lot more assessment that needs to go on within the organization. And then by improving our systems, better supporting our employees, this is a customer service business. That experience just simply improves. And that's a major focus of mine moving forward. So with that, any questions that you have for the mayor or I are happy to answer.
Okay. Thanks, Chief.
Chief, you spoke about the pending and you noticed about more public intoxication and things like that. Are you aware of what the station's policy has been in the past and if they've been handing out tickets and how many tickets they've been handing out, if they've seen public drug use and specifically pertaining to marijuana?
No idea what that data looks like. And again, I was away for nearly 7 years and a lot has changed. I know that all of our team has been working really hard, and that's not just sworn law enforcement. We have our community service officers that address some of this conduct. We have our community support liaisons that try to help in this arena as well. I don't have a scope of that, but I just wanted to call it out for what it was. And that's, a drastic change from when I left here in 2018.
Chief, for you, obviously, only really being right down the road, I'm sure you saw similar issues that you do see here in Burlington. Do you feel, though, being in the bigger city, that some of those issues are exacerbated?
So Burlington has always been much, much different than our surrounding communities. South Burlington is a lovely suburban city, and it's growing. And we were starting to see some of the similar behaviors. A lot of folks with unmet social service needs, a lot of folks living unhoused in certain areas. There's just less public spaces, and there's less community, if you will, for folks that are in those spaces to kind of hang out with. And I think it's always been different here. Even when I came on in the late 90s, there was a consistent population of folks that lived unhoused, that drank in public, much like we see today. Today, I think that population has grown a bit, and they have occupied public spaces differently. We had different enforcement mechanisms and accountability mechanisms in those days, and we weren't faced with the opioid crisis. So You know, looking back over 28 years, a lot has changed. Looking back over the last 7 years I spent in South Burlington, just vastly different communities. One thing that's exciting about being back at BPD is I came here because I wanted some grit in my policing. I like the excitement, I like the tempo, and I know the team here they're here for that level of work as well. And it's exciting to be their leader at this moment as we prepare the department for a transition to a new formal leader.
We've got plenty of grit. Plenty of grit to offer.
Mayor, as it pertains to the press release policy, obviously went into effect under Chief Murad. Do you have any sort of semblance as to what might change with that, or what we in the media can expect going forward with that?
To be clear, the press release policy for the BPD predates Chief Murad and has not been updated in, I think it's like 10 or 15 years at this point. I believe Chief Sherling was the chief at the time when it was last updated comprehensively. So what we are planning to do, the police commission has not met as frequently as we had hoped this winter. We were hoping when, and I know you're alluding to the executive order I issued a couple months ago now, we were really hoping that the policy development work, which has to go through the police commission, would have been done by now. But again, their meeting schedule was not a consistent one this winter. They are meeting again. They have a new chair. We're looking forward to working with Chief Burke around updating that policy. As he mentioned, there are model policies out there on the state level at this point. I also want to make sure that not only the press release policy for BPD is updated and professional and clear for staff, but also aligns with the city's overall personnel policy, which also has language in there that relates to media relations, department head engagement with the media, consistency with what the administration and city's positions are. So as soon as we're through that work, we will finally be able to have that updated and move on to other important policy work.
When you speak about assessment of recruitment and retention strategies, what are some of the elements of that you're going to be looking for in this assessment?
Well, I'll start on this and then I'll pass it to the chief. But a few of the things I've been very curious about as I have now finished about a year of being mayor and have had an opportunity to meet with other mayors in the region of New England and other cities across the country, it is very interesting to me around the use of resources. As folks will hear me talk about in a lot of spaces, Burlington city government, general operations wise, we're having structural budget gaps. And so every dollar really counts around how we're using it. What are the core services? Are we getting what we need out of that appropriation of funding? And I've often wondered, we spend more money in this department by far than any other department in terms of recruitment.
Small investments that we can use in terms of social media as well. And a lot of our workforce now is young. A lot of people in the room are young. No one really goes and looks at a physical newspaper or the other ways that we would traditionally begin to advertise. And then the metrics that you can obtain on the back end in almost live time to know if that juice is worth the squeeze. So back to the bottom line question. And also it'll be, it's very timely to have written direction to our recruitment team on what our plan is moving forward, and then incremental check-ins to make sure that we're being effective. You know, there's also a little bit of a peek behind the curtain here. There's only so many people that we can field train at any given time. So we need to really have a manifold on how many folks we can hire at any given time, so we can make sure that we're providing them with excellent training to serve this city. And then I think from a marketing perspective, it's like what the mayor alluded to. It's great to be a cop here, and we need to start telling that story. And the opportunities that are afforded by serving in a police department of this size are simply amazing. You can do everything from patrol to homicide investigations, you name it. So the world is your oyster as a Burlington cop. And I guess if you put your nose to the grindstone and hang out long enough, you could potentially be a police chief at some stage.
I want to ask about morale. Obviously, a lot of the men and women in this department worked under Chief Murad for quite a long time. Was there any concern or worry that a change in leadership would negatively impact morale at all? And is that something that you might be seeing?
It's like dancing here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's one thing that is absolutely going to happen in every single police organization. You're going to have new police chiefs. So the lifespan of a police chief on average right now is about 7 years across the country. Folks that are in really big police departments last 2 or 3 years. Legacy chiefs that come up in mid to small size police departments can last up to a decade. I will tell you, police chief years are almost like dog years. And you have to really always evaluate your efficacy as a leader and invest in the succession planning that the mayor has talked about. So you're building better leaders than you ever were to take the organization to even greater spots. And that's one reason why I stand here today. And part of my decision in leaving South Burlington, the command team that's in place at the South Burlington Police Department is the same command team that was going to be in place when I planned to retire from there in 2027. And they're ready for the challenge. And this organization is ready for the challenge. And, it's not lost on any of us, the work that Chief Murad put into this organization over the last 5 years. We're very proud of that. And the officers here are equally as proud of the leadership that he provided and the opportunities they were afforded. But this is a very natural transition to have a new police chief come in and to probably shake things up to some degree, as it pertains to an interim role. But I also feel that there was a degree in comfort when I came back here because I was a known entity. I think about half of the sworn personnel served here when I left. They were serving here in 2018 when I left, and about a third of the professional staff are consistent from those times as well. And that's been nice. When I pulled in here, not this past Monday morning, but the Monday morning before, it almost felt like coming home.
Can you talk about the priority response plan and if you've already identified changes that you'd want to make or inefficiencies? Because I think, a lot of people in the public talk about frustrations with that, but the reality is it sort of pertains to the headcount, right? Like police may not be able to respond to more calls until we get the headcount up. So I'm wondering if you've already got any insight into that.
Well, part of the reason why my number one priority is having a more responsive and effective community safety system is acknowledging the fact that police officers are not the ones to go to every single call. And even on that priority response plan, there are things that are very much appropriate for a different kind of personnel to respond to. So part of what I'm glad that Chief Burke is a data nerd, it seems like. So he seemed, in our initial no? Do not lie to me now. This is so embarrassing. I'm just teasing. But looking at data and like truly making sure, you did ask me this question. I'm just saying that this did happen in a conversation around understanding like who's been responding to what. So really being able to cut down to the different kinds of personnel we have at BPD to understand who's been responding, how do we better utilize who we have now while we rebuild. And I think that's part of the nuance that I know I have curiosity around how it's been working right now. The other side of it, and we've been slowly doing this in this first year as I've been mayor, is making sure the public is better educated about our full comprehensive existing response system. Frankly, even before I was mayor, I was a little confused on the true difference between a CSO and a CSL. I was going to add another letter. But that's important. And we've been doing consistently education with our updated community safety and security guide. There's information there. There's different phone numbers people can navigate. I heard loud and clear as a candidate for mayor, and certainly since being mayor, that we have more room to grow there around where to call and how to navigate our non-emergency phone line, for example. So it's not just the priority response plan, it's like how the information comes in for calls for support. We're also leaning in and making sure we have better partnerships with critical partners like the Burlington School District. We're finally moving forward with updating a long overdue MOU that had not been finalized around how do we make sure that those critical partners have a direct line, if you will, to the BPD if they were needing to call for help. There's a lot of room for growth, and as we both understand the data and nuance, I want to make sure that we're just being smart around using our current professionals that we have within the BPD, within our partners, to make sure we can be showing up for people with the kinds of calls and support they need as we continue to grow the ranks and make sure that we have an agency that people are proud to work in now and proud to come and join the team.
Chief, as you alluded to, Church Street is kind of in trouble, and there's open drinking, and personally I've seen people shooting up on the street all that summer. It seems like a common occurrence. Is there a change to get people back downtown and trying to curtail the activities that are happening in the city?
Yes, certainly. So every summer we would have a summer policing plan. we're right on the doorstep of that currently, and we're going to have to look at our finite resources in that regard. And, you know, almost to what the mayor was talking about a moment ago, is getting the right resource into those places, because public drug use is very, very troubling. But frankly, what we've learned is a referral to the criminal legal system in that regard is not effective. So what can we do in lieu of a police officer and that type of referral? How can we support that person with some of our professional staff? In terms of, you know, the open air drinking that goes on, I know that we can, you know, address that through enforcement, but not necessarily through ticketing, but enforcing the ordinance and making the behavior stop. That does take people. We hope to augment our resources downtown with our beach and park patrol this summer and have them trained not only to keep themselves safe, but a way to communicate with folks, actively listen, and to help change behavior almost voluntarily through these encounters. But, you know, again, we are less than 4 weeks away from the weather really changing, I hope. And I've got a short runway here. I'm anticipating that we'll have a number of challenges that we'll face, but I promise you that we'll roll up our sleeves and do the best that we can with what we have.
I'm just going to add on that a little bit because, of course, Chief Burke is in charge of the BPD, and part of what we want to do in our community safety strategy and response is be comprehensive. So really working in coalition across other departments and community partners. So the Howard Street Outreach Team, for example, has been a 20-year partnership with the city. And I know even did a ride-along with a person who is now a police officer here who used to work at the Howard Center. So making sure that those relationships are coordinated and strategic, and that we're all working together in a much more coordinated way is some of the additional thinking that we'll be doing as we head into the warmer months. Part of the general response downtown with drug use and just in general, kind of the population of folks who are in our center core of the city is around understanding the balance between accountability, but also making sure that we find the long-term solutions. Because as the chief mentioned, having only using the court system, which is severely backlogged, I talk about this a lot around that piece of the accountability system still needs some work, but it doesn't lead to long-term solutions. And helping people who are especially living with a substance use disorder, helping them get the actual road to treatment, road to hopefully recovery, that's also got to be a critical, important piece of the city's work. And that's why, on one hand, we're trying to really advance the Overdose Prevention Center work here as another tool, not a panacea by any means, but one additional tool to make sure that we're not just simply playing a game of almost whack-a-mole where things are just routinely happening and then we're engaging the same people time and time again. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, we have some more tangible things, including pilot efforts we're hoping to launch this spring, which we'll speak more to at my State of the City address on Monday, and again at the Community Safety Forum, or Community Safety Forum, yes, that's what we call it, on May 8th.
Chief Burke, I imagine you had multiple chances to speak to John Muir the past few weeks. Can you just tell me what those conversations were like, and if there was any advice he gave you, perhaps, as you stepped into the role you had?
So police chiefs, we commiserate all the time. And I say that in humor. No, Chief Murad and I have communicated on a regular basis, and he was really critical in the transition, and he still serves as a point of contact for me. I'll say that, you know, the pace of play here within the organization over the last few years in terms of bringing on the new resources, the CSL, the broader CAPE team, how that all integrates with street outreach, that was all kind of really rapidly developed. And now is a time where we can slow down a little bit, really analyze through data who's doing what now, how can we expand potential roles and improve the service provision that the community is getting, and also improve the opportunities for our team to stay in their respective roles. So I think that the handoff is great. I think the transition was prime to happen now, and all the pieces that we need for success are in place. We just need to better align those. So I'm really proud to have taken over after Chief Murad, and I think he did a good job here.
We probably have time for one more question if there is one.
I guess I'll do it. As it pertains to the broader search for a permanent chief down the road, I know you mentioned at one point the National Chiefs of Police Association has been involved in that. Have you expanded that at all? Have you brought on any other sort of players to help in that search? And if so, who might they be, and where does that search sort of stand?
Well, we have already contracted with IACP in order to help lead that search. We've modified the timeline a bit, obviously, because when we first started to put out the RFP for a hiring firm to help us and to do the networking and the promotion and the strategy work to make sure we would attract the best candidate to really meet what the Burlington needs today, we didn't know that Chief Shawn Burke was coming as an interim. So we've adjusted the timeline because what is most important right now is that we stabilize this department. We work on the internal work. The other priorities I mentioned earlier, that is the primary work right now to make sure that we are in a great place to recruit a candidate who's ready to get the warm handoff from Shawn Burke. So that will still happen in 2025. My goal still is that we would hopefully be making an offer to our permanent chief by the end of 2025, and that will be done with a partnership with IACP. At that point, we will hopefully be transitioning into Chief Burke becoming into a supportive leadership role within the BPD to make sure that transition is strong and fluid, and making sure the new chief, whoever she may be, he may be, they may be, is able to really make sure they have a full support as they enter in as the new chief. We also have a deputy chief position we're about to fill, and another one we're anticipating with a retirement at some point this calendar year. And so there's going to be a lot of new command staff, and I can't think of a better person to help with that transition over the next 2 years than Chief Shawn Burke. All right, you got the final word, so off we go. Thank you all very much for coming. Have a good Friday and weekend.